Hello everyone, welcome to the mechanism description team project assignment video. I'm going to explain a little bit about this assignment and you'll be able to find it on Canvas. So pull up the assignment sheet, which I've attached as a Word document, and that's what I'm going to be going through a little bit with some examples. So this is, historically, it's been a paper, an individual paper, and this semester I decided to go with a group project because it'll give you a chance to collaborate. I think a video is really well suited for the mechanism description, like it's a really good format for it. So yes, I know this is technical writing, but it's also technical communication. This will give you a chance to present something. So if you take a look at the assignment sheet, I define a mechanism here, and it's from our recommended textbook. A mechanism is a synthetic object consisting of a number of identifiable parts that work together. That's very broad. Parts is plural, right? A number could be any number, but parts is plural. So we're really talking about two or more identifiable parts that work together. You might have a really good argument why a one-part thing is a mechanism, and that's probably true in some ways. Maybe there are two different functional parts on the ruler that you're using. You say, oh, but like I know it's one piece, but the markings on it are functionally different than the length of it or something like that. And that may be true, but at least for the purposes of this assignment, you want to pick something with a little complexity. Pick something that's a little bit of a challenge. Then as a team, and I'm going to assign you in teams, describe a mechanism of your choice. And you'll record this as a video. You can do this in a number of different ways, and I actually don't care how you do it. You can do it on Zoom, you can do it, where you all meet on Zoom and you screen share, and you each kind of pop in when it's your turn. You can do it as individual videos that one of you then edits together, and I don't quite know how to edit 4 videos together, but if you have one team member that can figure it out, that would be a good way to do it. I say 4 individual videos. On average, I think the teams are going to be about 4 people. There may be a little bit of difference there. You might be 3 or 5. So that's kind of how you'll be presenting it. Then you'll be uploading it to the Canvas discussion so that your peers can watch and comment on your mechanism description. I am going to have you sign up for what mechanism you're going to be describing, because there are some great mechanisms out there, and we'll talk a little bit about the parameters on choosing them. A couple groups might want to do the same thing, but that makes for a little bit of a boring viewing experience for all your classmates when they have to watch 2 videos learning how the same thing works. So the sign up won't be, here's a finite number of things to choose from. It'll be free answer. You and your group can put in what you want to do. But then the next group, when they come into that sign up, you have to read what's already there and make sure that you're not signing up to describe something that is the same as another group. So basically no repeats. So how do you pick a topic for this? There's a couple of things that you'll want to know, and I'll give you a lot of examples from past papers on what the right level of complexity is. But the biggest thing during this pandemic is that you and your team have to find something that you all have access to. So it'll probably be something common, something that everybody has in their house. And I kind of brought some things. I'm in my kitchen, so I brought some things out of that kitchen drawer that has the random miscellaneous tools that I can show you in a little bit more detail. But there's all kinds of stuff: office supplies, toolbox items that maybe everybody in your team has. Here's a mechanical pencil. It's got a click top, and the lead comes out the bottom here. I know it's slightly different in design than other mechanical pencils. And I do have a Bic mechanical pencil around here somewhere. It's a little bit different. Like this one is rounded on the outside, and the Bic mechanical pencils, I believe, are hexagonal. So there might be some slight design differences between your, let's say, mechanical pencils, and this would be a good choice. And that's okay. You can have some design differences. The bones of it, the structure of it works really similarly. The kitchen drawer that has all the random stuff. we are actually going to be looking at an example of a vegetable peeler paper. So, so don't describe a vegetable peeler, but that is an example of something that maybe all of you have, and maybe you have slight design differences. I was looking for our second vegetable peeler because this vegetable peeler in classic design has two blades, 1, 2, where you peel the vegetable. And the other one we have, which actually is my favorite, and it might be in the dishwasher, it's interesting. It looks like this, but it has a blade down the middle, like one more thing down the middle. And that middle thing is double-edged as well. And so, so that is kind of neat because it hits the vegetable at a different angle than just these two blades. And so again, that's a little bit of a design difference. And if you had a double-edged one and someone else had one with the middle blade, as you're talking about the blade design, maybe both people could talk a little bit about their blade design and how they're slightly different, but they work similarly overall. Different kinds of corkscrews are great. This guy is the winged corkscrew. When you twist this into a bottle, it goes into the cork, and the arms rise up, and then when you pull these arms, these levers down, because of these gears, the gears move this guy back up, and the cork pulls out of the bottle. Really similarly, here's another corkscrew. You open it this way, and there's really interesting ranges of motion. Like this guy goes beyond 90 degrees, actually, but it snaps in a really interesting way to that 90-degree angle, and that's got a particular purpose as well. A lot of kitchen implements have bottle openers on them as well. This hook here is a bottle opener. This handle is also a bottle opener, if you see that little sharpish thing. And almost all of these kinds of corkscrews have a little bottle opener at the top. Here's an ice cream scoop. It's one of these where you push this in, and there's a little, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little kind of strap in here that moves. Not all the way through this hemisphere, but about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through. And what you do is you scoop your ice cream, and then when you press this, it releases that ice cream scoop from the bowl here, so that the scoop can come out really easily. So there's some really neat stuff in your kitchen. The bathroom and sort of grooming tools, personal grooming tools, are really nice too. There's I don't know, guys, if you would have this, but some of the women might have this. There's something called an eyelash curler. It's neat. It looks like scissors on one side of it, so you think, hey, these are scissors, but the other side has a totally different geometry. It looks totally different. And what you do is you squeeze the two scissor things together, and these two sort of, I don't even know what they'd be called, the two strips of metal with rubber on the bottom of them, squeeze together and squeeze the eyelash up. And the geometry of it is really neat because it's really strange if you have scissors, and usually, many of you have scissors, you squeeze these two things together, these two blades come together. It's really straightforward. With an eyelash curler, you're squeezing two essentially scissor handles together, but there are all these pivots to where when you squeeze like this, whoosh, two things up here go like this, whoosh, and it's really neat. So you might just kind of look around your house or your apartment for whatever random stuff you can find. Musical instruments, the instrument themselves, way too complicated, but there are aspects of instruments that work well. So if you zoom in on it, like a guitar tuning peg, how that works with the string. And so you don't have to pretend that it's not part of the larger guitar, but you're not describing how a guitar works. You would be saying, here's how the tuning peg works with the string, and how the string wraps around it, and how it attaches to it, and what it does to the string, and why that's important. You might even go so far as to show how the string is attached on the other end to the guitar, but you wouldn't have to talk about every single aspect of the guitar or the other strings. So sometimes with musical instruments, the paraphernalia we buy to go with them can be really interesting too. So, for example, I've had students describe a guitar or a stringed instrument capo, which is something, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong here because I don't play a stringed instrument. It's like a clamp, but it's a little bit soft, so it's not going to damage your instrument. But it's got some strength to it. And you clamp it on the strings on the neck of your guitar, and it shortens the strings. Like it basically effectively shortens the strings because you're clamping it somewhere on one of the frets. And so now you can play differently. And when you shorten the strings, the notes are higher. So that's kind of, it's a kind of clamp. And so it's a little bit easier to describe than like a whole guitar. So what you're looking for in level of complexity is something a little like this, or something a little like this mechanical pencil. I think there are things that are a little too simple. Scissors are too simple. They're really simple. I mean, even this one that has a little something extra going on here. This is a nutcracker. I can't say I've ever used this as a nutcracker, but this is a nutcracker here. So the zigzaggy things, you squeeze it together and you can crack a walnut or something like that. But even in describing that, once you describe one side of the scissors and one blade, you've essentially described the other blade and the other side. And then you do have to describe how they shear, but it's not that complex. It's fairly simple. So scissors are a little bit on the simple side. Here's another thing that would be too simple. This is a Mickey Mouse shaped cookie cutter, pancake cutter, egg maker. So, I mean, it's cool because it's heat resistant. So you can put it on your pan and pour your batter into it or pour your egg into it and it'll cook the thing in a Mickey Mouse shape. And then this pin over here moves. And it moves 360. So you can point it up and it's wooden at the top so that you can put this on your pan and you've got something to hold it by. But if you want it to be flat somewhere, you can, push this guy down. And, the heat resistance is cool and all that, but essentially the mechanism, it's just a shape. It's a shape and a metal. And, this is interesting, but it doesn't spring. It doesn't do anything all that cool. So I would say Mickey Mouse Pancake Maker is a little on the simple side. So you all can feel free to run your ideas by me. I've been around the block a few times when it comes to mechanism descriptions. I've seen students try things that are too complicated and too simple, and I can give you advice on that. On the too complicated side of things, a stapler is too complicated. And I know when I said office supplies, maybe some of you, your minds went to staplers. Hey, we all have a stapler. Stapler is too complicated. Once you get into that thing, oh man, there is actually a lot going on in a stapler. You've got springs that stretch this way and that. You've got a carriage that the staples go in. The thing opens up and you're like, how does it stay together? How does it lock so that it's not just freely opening up? And then how does the staple actually get crimped down? There's like a plate at the bottom that shapes the staple into its crimped shape. And it's quite a lot. And so I would suggest staying away from stapler. Sorry about the beeping. That is my robot vacuum that has probably gotten tangled into a cord somewhere. Hopefully that will stop. Yeah. So the level of complexity, I'm trying to think of things that also have been too complex. I had a student once say they really, really wanted to describe not the entire piano, but the mechanism behind hitting one piano key. Guess what? Way complicated. It's really cool, and it would be an ideal thing if you were doing some 45-minute YouTube video and you wanted to, really get into it. But you either would just be able to get into the surface of what is going on without going into detail, which is a little bit against the spirit of this, or you would just have way too much work to do and do some gigantic video. So that, I mean, I know that not all of you have a piano in your apartment, but that's an example of something that is, that's a little too complicated. You might find as you talk to each other on Zoom from your apartments that everybody has the same kind of blinds. Maybe you all live on campus and you've got the same kind of horizontal blinds or something like that. Those would make for a good mechanism. There's kind of, there's a lot of stuff. Just look around at fasteners. There's different kinds of fasteners that you have on your clothing and your backpacks. Clips and clamps, zippers. Even those of you who have watches that have, instead of just the leather strap with the holes in it, maybe they have some sort of locking mechanism or clamp. Personal grooming tools, jewelry, clothing, and backpacks and stuff like that. Climbing equipment is great. I think the likelihood that all of the people in your group are climbers is really slim, but maybe everybody's got some sort of carabiner on their backpack. Maybe brainstorm a bunch of things as you are Zooming with each other. Talk about what you all have. Maybe everybody bring some stuff to the table and compare. Oh yeah, I have one of those too. And you'll be able to find something that everybody has access to. If you have a friend that has access to it and you're seeing them and you can, in a very socially distant and appropriate way, borrow that thing, make sure you wipe it down or wash it or whatever. But, if three people have, a corkscrew and you don't, but you're like, I know that my neighbors do, and they would be willing to lend it to me for a couple of weeks if they've got an extra. Be really careful and follow all of WashU's rules on how you interact with people. But you can borrow stuff. Or if one of your group members wants to do their part and then hand their thing off to you in an appropriate way so that you can do your part, that would work too. You can be very creative about how you make this work, because this is a very weird semester. So that's a little bit about how complex or how simple the thing should be. We are going to be talking about a few examples in class, so they're going to be off limits. I have a video I'm going to post where I'm going through a binder clip. Those are, you'll see, but they're usually black, and they're like big, strong paper clips, essentially. I don't have one here right now, but so I'm going through binder clips in a little bit of detail, and then we're looking at two example papers. One is a vegetable peeler, and its design is almost identical to this one, except it doesn't have a rubber pad on the outside. And then the other one is a staple remover. Not a stapler, a staple remover. So those are off limits. So that's, just something to kind of keep in mind. But other than those, you all can pick whatever mechanism you want. This is not a research project. Yes, if you wanted to, you could say, I really want to know what the, metal alloy is that this thing is made of. So I really want to go to the manufacturer's website and see what it is so that we can talk about its material. And if you want to research one item or maybe two little items like that, or some of the history of it, you can. How you would cite that in a video, you could do a little screen share of the citation at the end, or you could upload to Canvas a separate, or email me a separate works cited. So a little bit of the history or something would be really cool. There's some really interesting history on some of these, or sort of design elements. So it's okay to research a little bit, but this is about observing your mechanism and figuring out on your own how it works. And by on your own, I mean you and your group, so you have each other. Maybe someone's a little more mechanically inclined. They can figure out, hey, what's stopping this from moving from this side to this side? How do they do that? Why is that range of motion important? Why are these tabs here? You don't have to know what this metal alloy is. You could call it some kind of strong metal, some kind of corrosion resistant metal. You could say probably stainless steel. and that would be okay. So you can absolutely take your best guess. This is some sort of rubbery material. So you could say plastic, or, a little bit, I think it's plastic. I mean, I think it's plastic, but it's got a little give to it. I don't think it's actually rubber. But, you can take your best guess on materials. You don't have to look it up. This whole thing is metal. That's as far as I need to go. This is metal. This is metal. This guy's metal. The little knife is metal. And so, that's fine. This is really about you observing the world around you and observing this little tiny thing and really noticing the bevels on the blade. How sharp is this really? And if it's not that sharp, how does it cut anyway? Why is this handle the shape and size that it is? Why did they cover it in plastic? Why is this little cutout here, and why is it the shape and size it is? How come this thing opens out this far, but not farther? And what stops it from opening farther? Why is this knife here? How far does it open? It seems to go way past 90 degrees. It goes almost to 180 degrees. Maybe that's 170 or something like that. But, why is it serrated? So this is really a chance for you guys to just play around with the mechanisms and figure it out. Then describe it. So this is not, let me research everything I can about this mechanism and learn it from the internet and then, put it back out there. Sure, there's information on the internet, but this is a chance for you to show the way that you look at this mechanism as a group and really kind of detail it. But any research you do, make sure you cite properly. I don't care if you use MLA, APA, whatever citation style you feel comfortable with, that's completely fine. It just has to be something. So you're going to include an introduction where you introduce the mechanism. I'm going to do a little sample of this, and I'll do it with the vegetable peeler because you can't describe a vegetable peeler anyway. So I might say, this is a vegetable peeler. It's about, I should have measured this beforehand. It's about 6 inches long and about 1.5 inches wide at the handle. It has a blade and a handle. Those are the two parts. So I've listed the parts and I showed you where they were, right? And so that would be the intro, but it could have some really interesting things too. This design has been around for over a century, or, something like, it's likely that your grandparents or great-grandparents used a vegetable peeler that was almost identical in design. So you really can kind of have fun with the introduction. And I'm like a little boring a lot of the time, right? I'm pretty straightforward. I don't think of really wacky things to do. You all might. You might have some hilarious thing that you do and that you want to do, and that is completely fine. You don't have to have a super straightforward introduction. You can, and it'll still be interesting. I don't think boring is quite the right word. I should say I'm very straightforward a lot of the time, and direct. But yeah, you could have something really fun that you do with this. You can make a cartoon of it or whatever. So the introduction, you introduce what the parts are. And then in the parts description, you would go into each part in some level of detail. So that you would talk about the blade section. Okay, this is the blade. And it's got 2 sharp edges. You would tell us maybe how sharp they are. You might explain the curvature, because this is curved in here, and why that is. You would talk about the specific sizes, so the length of the actual sharp blades. You would talk about how it actually cuts a peel of a vegetable or potato or whatever. There's a little kind of, it's not pointy, it's curved and protruding, a little almost pointy part at the end. What is that for? It's so that you can scoop out the little eyes of the potato, any imperfections in whatever you're peeling. You can just kind of push in there and scoop it out. So it is almost curved like a spoon at the end. It's not sharp, but it doesn't really have to be. This has a range of motion. You would talk about that. Why does it move? And what's that all about? And then it's interesting. So when you're talking about why it moves back and forth, you would mention that these tabs limit its movement, right? But then when you're talking about the handle section, so whoever's talking about the handle section would be talking about, oh, the handle is set up in this way and whatever, it's this size and this material for these reasons. You would talk about the tabs, and actually you'd be talking about those little tabs in a really similar way to what was said in the blade section. So it's like almost describing the same interaction twice, but from different points of view. This was from the point of view of the blade being limited by these tabs. Here it would be from the point of view of the tabs that are there to limit the blade movement. So, you might find yourself describing something from two different points of view just to be thorough, and that's completely fine. You could decide whether, so this rod is a continuous piece from the blade. Actually, is it? It might be sort of screwed in or attached in, and you don't have to know if it's screwed or attached in some other way. You could just say that it's fixed in there. So it looks like the blade section kind of wraps around it, and it's a fixed connection. But then this rod in here, you could make that part of the handle section, even though it's kind of attached more to the blade, but functionally it's part of the handle, or you can make it part of the blade section, or you can make it its own section. It's kind of up to you. So, you've got some decisions to make, but you're going to describe each part and how it works and how it's connected to other parts and why. And then give us a brief user guide. So if it were this, one of you might take a potato or an apple and show us how to use it. And this would be, you're familiar with this. This would be like your best YouTube video describing how to use a mechanism. You want it to be engaging, clear, accessible to the general public. All of that is going to be important. So, and then come up with a friendly and engaging conclusion. This would be it could be really short. It could be like, now you know how to use this vegetable peeler. Have a great time making apple pie and whatever it is. Or it could be something fun. You guys could go into design differences or interesting ideas for improving the design of something. You could talk about the flaws of your vegetable peeler. So there are a lot of things that you can do that are more analytical in the conclusion if you want to. And you could do stuff that's fun if you want to. How you break this up between each other and your presenters is kind of up to you. And if there are design differences, you might say, well, in our team of 3, we have 2 different blade shapes. One has this double blade, one has a third blade in the middle. Maybe the 2 of us that have the different designs will tag team the blade section, and I can describe the double blade, and then my classmate with the extra one in there can pop in and say, hey, mine is a little bit different. Here's how this blade design differs, but how it functions in much the same way. Similarly with like mechanical pencil, mine's rounded. Someone else might say, mine's hexagonal. It's really good for grip. So you can kind of jump in on each other if you want to, especially if you're doing Zoom, or you can have a nice sort of broken up presentation where each person has their part and then they transition to the next person. Do keep in mind that if you're doing the parts separately and bringing them together at the end, they should feel cohesive. It should feel like one presentation, like you all planned it together and you had an idea and you're going to do this together. It shouldn't feel like each person did their own random part and then at the end you stitched it together with some sort of random string. Really, it should feel intentional. Maybe the introduction would give us a preview for what everybody's going to be doing. Do make sure you introduce yourselves as well. Not everybody in the class knows you because this semester we have this weird format, and so some of you, the ones who are coming in person versus the ones who are coming on Zoom, you may not know each other really well. So just introduce yourself. First name is fine. And that way we know who we're hearing from. So you might come up with something even more creative. It could be a skit. It could be, just kind of anything, anything you can imagine. You all are more creative than I am, so I think you'll come up with some interesting stuff. I've included in the assignment a list of brainstorming questions, and we'll go through those in the video I'm going to post where I show you a binder clip and some of the stuff about it. And so that might give you an idea of the depth that you might go into while you're brainstorming. But a good way to start here would be to meet with your group and come up with something that you all have access to that would be a good level of detail. Tools are great too, and I know you all are engineers, but different kinds of engineers. Some of you maybe have a toolbox, some not, but you might all discover like, hey, we all have a wrench or a ratcheting screwdriver or whatever kind of thing. So yeah, brainstorm some topics, ask me. I'm happy to guide you to find something that works for you and your team that you can describe well. So that's just a little bit about this assignment, and I hope that this was informative and gave you a little bit more of a background of what you're going to be doing. I did want to mention there's no minimum or maximum length on the length of this video, and I've done that on purpose, mostly because I've never done this as a video assignment before. I don't quite know how long it's going to be if you describe the mechanism in a good level of detail, especially it's going to vary depending on your mechanism. Just do a good job describing it. My guess is that these are going to come in at around 10 minutes, with each of you talking for 2 or 3 minutes, or if it's a group of 3, then each person would have a little bit more part. If it's a group of 5, then maybe each person talks for a little less. My guess is that on average they'll come in around 10-12 minutes. Some might be longer though, and it is okay if it's substantially longer. But if you find that you and your team only have like 2 or 3 minutes of stuff to talk about total, I think either your mechanism's too simple or you're not going into as much detail as you could. So, so 2 or 3 minutes would be too short. Certainly, there's no maximum length, but don't give us an hour-long explanation. That's a lot. So, you want to keep it really detailed, but also concise and engaging. But that there's a wide range of length. So I don't want to lock you down on any particular length. Take as long as you need to describe it well. So that's the length requirement. You can record this as a video and upload it embedded as a video into Canvas. You could upload it to YouTube and then put the YouTube link in Canvas. Any of that is fine. So that's kind of up to you how you do it. If you're having trouble getting it embedded in Canvas, you can let me know. I can try, or I we can send people to a Google Doc link or something like that. So yeah, that's the overview. Thanks for listening, and I hope that you will come to me with any questions that you have. Thanks.